Great. So welcome along to our Cycling Communities session as part of this Community Climate Action Week in the Outer Hebrides, which has been sponsored by Peatland Action from Nature Scot and the Pebble Trust. So today we are looking at cycling in communities. A few housekeeping rules. I mean, there's not many of us on the call, so it doesn't really matter too much, but if you could keep mics muted unless you're speaking. And if you do have a question, we'll probably stop for questions after each of our speakers. So feel free maybe just to unmute your mic and come in. I don't imagine it'll be too boisterous. So today we're joined by two great speakers, Mark Dowey from CoMoUK and Daryll Brown from Cycling UK, who has had to drop off at the moment, but will hopefully be able to get back on shortly. So Mark leads on the built environment delivery of shared transport solutions in Scotland. So things such as infrastructure or I guess looking at mobility hubs and how they can be developed in different environments. We'll hear more about that from Mark. Daryll works for Cycling UK. He's based down in Harris and styles himself as a lifelong cyclist and bike nerd. So he's currently working on a project called Rural Connections, which involves supporting community groups across the Outer Hebrides to start cycling sessions or cycling clubs. And so he's really keen to build up interest in local areas and also help people feel safe and comfortable when cycling. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and stop sharing my screen. I think as we've not got too many people on the call today, it might be good to start with a round of introductions and maybe just quickly say hi. And if you've got a particular cycling interest or a cycling project in the works, you could let us know about that, if that's okay with everyone. I'll maybe pass over to Mark first to get started.
Yeah, as Matthew said, my name's Mark Dowey. I am the Senior Development Officer for CoMoUK, specialising in the built environment in Scotland. I'm an architect to trade. Recently did a Masters in Environmental Management. Very interested in shared transport policy and how we implement it in Scotland. So that's me. In terms of my next screen, it's Alistair. So if you don't mind introducing yourself, Alistair, that'd be great.
Yes, my name's Alistair Nicholson. I'm a community consultant retained by Point and Sandwick Trust. One of the many projects, as it were, that we're getting started is provision of e-bike facilities, and we're hoping that that will be used in conjunction with the development of the coastal path side of things that we have in Point and Sandwick.
Okay, thanks, Alistair. I'll go down to Nigel. If you're happy to jump on and introduce yourself, Nigel, that would be great.
Yeah, good morning all. My name's Nigel Bruce. I'm the Project Community Officer for the can you hear me all?
Yeah.
Hello.
A bit quiet,
Yep.
but that sounds better, yeah.
Okay. Sorry, Nigel Bruce. I'm the Project Community Officer for the Harris Voluntary Service based down in Tarbert. I'm a keen cyclist and a triathlete. I had my name down for the cycle leadership course in Stornoway a few weeks ago, but unfortunately I had to pull out of that one. So I was keen to try and get another one of those arranged when the dates are suitable. I'm keen to hook up with Daryll. I think he's based in Harris as well. I'm sure there's some synergies we could put together between the Harris Trust and the voluntary service. So keen to understand what's happening.
Great, thanks, Nigel. Go to Sally next.
Hi there, my name's Sally Reynolds. I work for Urusai Carlavai as a development manager, and we've got some e-bikes arriving in February, so I was just keen to find out a bit more.
Great, thanks, Sally. And Gemma, if you want to give a quick introduction to yourself too.
Yeah, hi, my name name's Gemma and I am the new Community Development Officer for North Lochs and Kinloch. This post has been funded by the Uris Trust. We don't have any sort of projects in place at the moment. The role is very new and I'm still sort of meeting with community groups, but I felt that there would be some very useful information across the whole of this week that that may very well sort of play into people's projects. So just gathering information at this point.
Great, thanks Gemma. And maybe go back to Daryll then, as he's been able to join us, which is great. If you just want to give a quick introduction to yourself, Daryll, and yeah, we'll obviously go into more detail in your presentation in a moment.
Hi guys, I'm Daryll Brown. I am a development officer working for Cycling UK up here in the Western Isles, and I am running two projects at the moment. One called Rural Connections and the other one called Shift. And as I say, we'll go into that in my presentation in a minute. I'm a pretty keen cyclist, lived on Harris for 7 years, done a lot of different jobs. Some of you may know me already. So hi, I've got really bad connection, so I'm sorry if I break up.
Well, it's coming in loud and clear just now, Daryll, so we'll just keep our fingers crossed that it stays that way.
No worries, that's cool.
And then I think we've just been joined by Kathleen, my colleague Kathleen as well, who you're welcome to do a quick introduction, Kathleen, but if you want to just stay in the back and watch. I know you're looking after some young people today, so no pressure.
Hi everyone. Yes, I've got kids with me today, so I'm probably going to be on mute for a lot of this session, but it sounds interesting, so hopefully I'll catch up with things. Yeah, I'm work alongside Matthew, based in the Western Isles as well, and I've been working for Community Energy Scotland for about 13 years now, so lots of different things, and it's quite exciting seeing more on the transport side coming up. So yeah, interested to hear what's going to be spoken about today.
Okay, well, thanks everyone, and yeah, we'll pass on to Mark now to talk about built environment and opportunities around shared transport through developing our built environment. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Matthew. Can I just check that everybody can see the shared screen? That's all working okay. Because I'm never quite sure in Zoom. I'm fine on Teams, but Zoom kind of makes me a wee bit wobbly at times. Well, hello and welcome to this session. Today I'm going to talk about how mobility hubs can work in rural communities. I appreciate that we're here to talk primarily about bike sharing, and whilst that is important, I see bike sharing as a springboard opportunity to decrease our dependency on cars by promoting other ways of getting around. As much as we all like it to be cycling, it's not for everyone, you know, the demographics of it and such like. Once users engage with a bike share scheme, they're also very likely to consider other ways to get around without using a private car. These modes are often brought together in a mobility hub, a fairly new concept, and I see no reason why these hubs cannot work in rural areas, providing the modes meet the needs of the community, and that's really what we're here to talk about today. So moving on, what is a mobility hub? Well, graphically that's it there, and you can see all the different modes coming together in one location. By definition, we've defined it as mobility hubs are highly visible, safe and accessible spaces where public, shared and active travel modes are co-located alongside improvements to public realm and where relevant enhanced community facilities can be found. So that's the word soup version of it. So the reality of it, what are the various components of a mobility hub? Well, we start with bus and rail connectivity. Public transport's absolutely key in getting people out of their cars and onto bikes and possibly even e-scooters in the near future. So the primary driver of a mobility hub is that ability to link into public transport modes. It's very important in first and last mile connectivity, given that public transport setting. So beyond bus and rail connectivity, we need the shared transport modes. The main shared transport modes for mobility hub are bike share, including e-bike, lift share, car club, e-scooter share, EV charging, and DDRT, which is digital demand responsive transport. Most of these modes are existing technologies, but some are just emerging, such as e-scooter. This mode is currently being trialled in England to great success. Not quite as successful, we're hearing now, as bike share, which, having been in London a few weeks ago, was quite a surprise because you see a lot of scooters on the go. So beyond that, what else can we have? Well, facilities other than shared transport modes offer opportunities to expand the offering at hubs. I think this is a category that's up for grabs and very much so in a rural context, and as a response to the site and the context of the hub. How is it perceived both by the community and the users? Is there mileage in providing extra facilities? Perhaps your hub's in a town centre and all your facilities are there already. So we certainly don't want to compete on that basis. So it's understanding that context. And then could these facilities part fund the revenue stream that actually makes the hub viable? So what are they? Well, we could have cycle parking and storage, could have parcel lockers, you've seen them, the Amazon lockers and such like. And then beyond that, WCs, cafe, vendors or vending machines, wayfinding, shared office space, I can go further, community gardens, anything and everything that could make the hub viable. So what is the big picture? Well, 27% of people choose a bike over a car for the last journey due to the availability of a bike share scheme. Bike share reduce car use, it's as simple as that. 66% of users see improved health benefits from membership of a bike share scheme. 41% of users reduce car usage due to membership of a bike scheme, which I think you'd agree is a huge number. And 37% of bike share users went on to buy their own bike. So bike share complements private ownership of bikes. It brings people into the cycling fraternity. So all these I think are really positive. But how does that play out in a rural context? We know that bike share is a positive addition to the transport mix. But can that transfer to other modes, the modes that reduce car usage? Well, these survey results suggest other micro-mobility modes can be added to the mix. But in a rural context, that's where we at CoMoUK, we need rural communities to help to understand and scope genuine workable solutions that meet contextual requirements. I think it's very much worth laying on the line just now that, in my opinion, a mobility hub currently as it's scoped is an urban and a suburban response to the issues of shared transport and micromobility. I don't think we're quite there yet in a rural context, and I've certainly asked for some research to be done. I'd like to organise some workshops to really get some engagement with rural communities, both on the islands and on the mainland, as to how these sort of things might work for them. Because at the end of the day, it's hugely important that we reduce car usage. And I think depending on where you are, that solution is going to be very different and look very different. But I don't think there's any reason why we can't understand that and promote it in the correct manner, because I'm concerned at the moment that mobility hubs are an urban solution and we don't really have a rural mobility solution as yet. But, you know, we'll keep going. So what do we see as the key challenges in a rural mobility hub? Well, I think scale is the key. Make it fit your community. It's as simple as that. We're certainly challenged in modes. I think we should always start with the easiest first. Why make things difficult for yourself? We would suggest bike share as the obvious one, and I think that's kind of why we're here today. But also DDRT, digital demand responsive transport, where you've got an app-based bus service, and I fully understand, as somebody that spends half his life in Mull, that not everywhere gets a mobile reception, so that in itself is challenged. And I suppose things like e-bike share and such like may be challenged if you're trying to do it on an app base. Car clubs could also be in the mix, so there's a lot in there to actually start the springboard. And that's what it is. I perceive a mobility hub in a rural context as a springboard for change. It's about putting something in the community that is a marker for change, a physical emblem of change that people can interact with. You know, it's a bike share, it's a couple of EV car clubs. It just gives them that idea that we're starting to do things differently, and it's not about just getting in your car. Now, I appreciate, again, coming back to the point, that works brilliantly in an urban context, but it is definitely more challenged in a rural context. So we really need to work on that and understand the best way of doing it. I think it equally works as a sort of rallying cry for change in the community. But with an asset such as a mobility hub, you're saying to your community, things are changing here, come with us, you know, we're going to make a difference, we're going to get people out of cars, we're going to get them onto various forms of micromobility, be it e-bikes, bikes, e-scooters, whatever they are. And of course, it promotes walking, cycling, and a healthy, active lifestyle. Now, I'm not sure that should be a challenge, but I think it often is in Scotland, unfortunately. So, you know, it's something that we can use for the positive. So the pause for thought is, can I get rid of my car, even some of the time? It's really about getting people to make that leap. We need them to engage with this idea of change. It's about changing behaviours. It's about understanding different modes of travel. So the mobility hub is something that's there, it's new, and it suggests something new to the transport user. And I think that's the real big picture ticket. It becomes this sort of totemic idea of change, and it's in the community. Yeah, it's about changing behaviour, getting people out of the cars into new modes of transport. A huge challenge, certainly, but a necessary one given the climate emergency that we find ourselves in. Okay, so locating, I can't see that bit on the screen. Community engagement and consultation. So when thinking about where to place a mobility hub, it's certainly beneficial to think about community engagement and consultation. So how do we go about that? Well, develop a list of interested parties and stakeholders. These could include local authorities, MPs, community councils, residents, business and transport operators. Identify their area of interest. For example, local authorities would be interested in reducing parking, improving community benefits, to target that. However, business and residents may have other concerns and wish to discuss these. It may be about access to services and to premises. Timing. Consider when to engage with stakeholders. Local authorities should be contacted first to develop local political support to then present to local MPs. Thereafter, community support would be identified and any concern noted to be addressed in consultation. So it's about getting that timeline right and making it work for you and for your process. Identify the benefits. Outline the benefits for each stakeholder. For example, the business community could benefit with sponsorship opportunities, the creation of a cafe, and increased footfall in the area. So it's about finding the right benefits for each stakeholder in the process. And lastly, and possibly most importantly, effective messages. Conclude the engagement process with an overview of the project, including environmental benefits, community benefits of increased accessibility, promotion of low carbon or zero carbon vehicles, and the potential to save residents money due to increased shared transport options. I think at this point it's worth saying, if you go into the CoMoUK website, we've got a lot of documents on both on mobility hubs and bike share car clubs. It's worth going on and having a look at them and getting an idea of how we can help you. And beyond that, we're more than happy to engage one-to-one if you've got questions around that or if you need further information. Okay, so locating in a rural area. Well, as previously mentioned, public transport locations are key, assuming you have public transport options, I guess, bus, ferry, train perhaps, but I acknowledge a lot of the time that is challenged in rural areas. I go beyond that and say the obvious location is usually the best. A mobility hub needs to be engaged with the community it serves. It needs to be prominent and it needs to be connected. Hublets, and that's about joining the dots. One hub doesn't work for a majority of journeys. People need to be able to drop off their bikes when they arrive at their destination. One hub suggests an out and in, and that doesn't work for a lot of journey types, not least a kind of commuting type journey. So how do the hublets work? Well, perhaps you bring private partners into the mix. Hotels, campsites, employers can all provide a hublet opportunity where bikes can be dropped in an area that's away from the main mobility hub, but still serves the purpose. Robustness, well, we've had a lot of problems with crime, there's no two ways about it. Edinburgh, Glasgow, Cardiff recently as well. Not sure if there's the same issues in rural areas, but it's certainly something that you need to engage with when you're speaking to any operators, or if you're doing a community scheme, you know, how you actually go about ensuring that that doesn't happen. I think lastly, for rural schemes, obviously tourism is a generator of use and behaviour change. So if rural communities are resistant to change, can tourists using these modes change attitudes to micromobility? You know, because people are coming up from the cities and engaging in your area, they may well use micromobility elsewhere, and if they see it available there, it ups the usage and it normalises the usage. And I think that's a very positive thing, especially in rural areas where there's a challenge in uptake. So look at some developments. Stow Community Trust. So Stow Community Trust exists to join together local community ventures to develop social, cultural and economic opportunities for the common good. The trust is established as a company limited by guarantee. It's got comprised a board of volunteer directors and a large body of members. So they acquired the local train station house after it was due to be demolished. With the opening of the Edinburgh Tweedbank line, Stow realised they were not included, and after a local campaign were successfully added to the train line. With the train line in operation, the trust decided to convert the station house into a community hub. So I think it's open now. I need to double check that, and it includes a cycle hub, toilet, snug, cafe and community room. As part of the cycle hub in the station, the trust offers an e-bike with a trial service. This project is an excellent example of combining shared transport, public transport and active travel. And you can see how they may be able to develop that. They may be able to bring a car club into it. So there's options there. They have the locale, they have the hub, so they can take it forward. An example of a possible future mobility hub, Portree on the Isle of Skye. Portree currently is a town square which holds the bus station and some car parking. It could be utilised as a mobility hub if it was to offer shared transport options, for example, car and bike share schemes. You know, this is just very much us picking one and saying, look, it can be done here. We don't see any reason why not. Public transport is already at the location, and active travel could be encouraged through a bike scheme with hublets and promotion of active travel solutions in the town. If a mobility hub was to be operated out of Portree Square, then it could act as a tourism hub through peak season and could be used by locals as a village hub in the off-peak season. There will also be an opportunity to have similar mini hubs in Skye, other locations, including Broadford and Uig, and their ferry connections to the Isle. So, you know, there's that idea of starting in one place and then kind of spreading out beyond that to other suitable locations. A leisure centre in the northwest of Scotland. It's a community leisure centre run by the community for the community in Loch Inver, northwest Scotland. So the plans to make the car park at a St Leisure Centre into a facility stop for motorhomes and camper vans, providing waste disposal, grey water disposal and freshwater top-up. Users will also be able to access facilities including Wi-Fi, showers and tourist information services within the leisure centre. The leisure centre's car park could be transformed into a mobility hub. The site is already home to e-bike hire, which houses 3 mountain bikes, 3 hybrids and an e-cargo bike. Surplus income from the hiring of the e-bikes is already being distributed back into the leisure centre and the future replacement of the e-bikes. The other thing that we think is going to be quite prominent is solar charging of e-bikes. We've just supported a scheme down in Glasgow, which, as best we're aware, is the first in the UK to actually look at solar charging of e-bikes. It seems an obvious one, but it hasn't been done to date in the UK that we can find. So we're supporting that. Once that's up and running and they understand the challenges, then they're going to do some case studies and such that we can distribute that to interested parties. And that'll be an interesting one to see how it goes. So that was a St. So key things going forward. Collate evidence, set up a community engagement or consultation process to go over plans. This will help aid decision makings. Know your stakeholders. Who are they? Find out about them. Will they be involved in the setting up or running of the hub? Who are your target audience? Suburban, rural tourism, business parks even, housing. Funding, the big one. How are you going to fund it? Running costs, employment, sustainability of the hub. Services. What services are you going to offer? And again, that's what we've talked about. I think that's the key, is understanding exactly what you can offer and how you can build in that offer going forward to create the hub. And then, yeah, location. Where is the best place for the hub? It's as simple as that. We need to get it right. In rural areas, it may be worth considering having several mobility hubs dotted around, say within 1 or 2 hours of each other. And again, that goes back to the idea of hublets as well. This way you can have shared bike and car share drop-off pickups across the area. So it's understanding how the offering might work across the area, not just in the location. Okay, so CoMoUK UK, how can we help? Well, we can advise on what a mobility hub costs to implement. We're doing a trial just now with 6 mobility hub types, ranging from a sort of large-scale urban down to a tourism hub. So we're working with an architect in Glasgow, John Gilbert Architects, to develop both a kind of idea of what each of these settings might look like. Obviously, we've got the graphics, but actually to understand it in a kind of built environment form, and also provide some costings for that. Now, I mean, that'll be exemplar stuff, but it gives you a basis to work away from. The big one, we can advise on live funding streams, as well as giving micro grants to community organisations to help with start-up costs. So, I mean, if there's anything at the moment you're hearing today that you think, well, we've certainly got up to £1,500 that we can help with start-up costs. That, for instance, is what we gave to the e-bike scheme to get that going on the solar charging side of things. We can advise on the scale of the operation, how to make it work across multiple suitable sites, or bring us in. We can really look at and get an understanding of what you've got out there, what the lie of the land is, and in our opinion, what the best thing to do is. Now, I would always caveat that by saying that's our opinion, and we need to hear your side of the story as well, so that we can work together and implement the right scheme. At CoMoUK, we recognise that we need to work with rural communities to understand how mobility hubs can be used as a viable, tangible springboard to change transport behaviours. I have no wish to tell you what a mobility hub is in your area. It's about your understanding of it and how you want to deliver it. But we'd hope that with CoMoUK help, you can start to paint this picture yourselves. We also provide an accreditation service, which may feed into funders and insurers. Lastly, if the Place Standards Toolkit is something that you're working with in terms of your scheme, I don't know if you've come across it. It comes from Architecture Design Scotland and the planning side of things. We can advise on how to bring shared transport into that mix. At the moment, shared transport's not really covered in the Place Standards Toolkit, which is in itself very good. So we can advise on how you could bring that in to make that work. And, at the end of the day, we might even be able to help reduce a bit of transport poverty out there. I think that's me. I'll just about take a deep breath. Thank you very much for your time. If you wish to contact me, please do so at mark@como.org.uk. And I've mentioned before, I'd encourage you to use the CoMoUK website at como.org.uk. to view our library of guidance materials on mobility hubs and shared transport in general. Please do get in touch, and I'll be happy to share CoMoUK case studies with you if that's of interest. And that's me. Thanks very much, folks. I'll stop sharing my screen, and if there's any questions, please do fire away.
That's great. Well, yeah, thanks very much, Mark. That was really informative, and yeah, for me personally, interesting. Quite a few of the points you touched on, and I think good to have quite a realistic view really of what the situation is. Daryll is just joining, but just so, yeah, does anyone have any questions at this point to ask Mark, particularly on that kind of mobility hub development side of things?
Could I come in, Mark? I don't know, do all the mobility hubs link up together? Are they in touch with each other in different areas?
Yeah, well, I mean, this is an interesting, I think we're very much at the cliff face with mobility hubs. There's not a huge amount of them out there in the UK. There's no two ways about it. We're more at the planning stage in an urban context. yeah, I mean, the idea is they're all kind of app-based, so they will all talk to each other. What we're trying to really impart on local authorities is that they need to be the generator of this change. You know, so if we're talking to housing associations and developers who may be building houses, and the local authorities are saying to them, look, you know, we think shared transport's a good idea. You need to do this, and in doing this, you can increase your density. I'll not go into the whys and wherefores of that. These guys they're interested, but they kind of realise that what they're doing is starting the ball rolling, and for them that doesn't really work. It's too much of a risk. So what we really need to do is local authorities to be in there in town centres and starting this process, and in doing that, you create the pivot for everything else to happen around about it, and in doing so, these things then start to talk to each other. So this, you know, for instance, the shared bike scheme has to be one scheme, so is that you get off the bus, you hire a bike, and you cycle it to your destination. There's no point in having to cycle it all the way back to the hublet, or to the hub rather, because that's no use to you. You'll simply walk it. So it's about that kind of joined up thinking and getting these things all talking to each other, and they do so, yeah, primarily on an app basis at the moment. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Alistair, I've seen you've popped something in the chat there just about one of the projects Point and Sandwick are developing. I don't know if you want to, yeah, discuss that with Mark. If so, go ahead.
Yeah, I've just picking up on Mark that there aren't many e-bike schemes that are powered or going to be powered by solar. That's precisely what we're planning for the e-bike project in Point, where that will be based at the community centre in the old school in CoMoUK that's being redeveloped at the present time. So the e-bikes, there'll be 7 e-bikes, hybrid bikes, and we're just waiting on a bike shed to be delivered. But the solar panels will be up in the building January, February. So I'm certainly expecting that by the time the sort of springtime, we'll have a situation where the bikes will actually be getting their power as part of the energy hub side of the CoMoUK school development. So you know, that's I see that as something that will hopefully lead into vehicle charging points as well, and that's something that I'm chasing up on at the moment too.
Well, that's great to hear. I did wonder why we weren't hearing more of these things out there in terms of solar charging for e-bikes. It seems an obvious kind of win-win. I'm delighted to hear that you're down the road with it. Yeah, I mean, would it be interesting? The timeline, I think at the moment is, it sounds like you're pretty much matching what the project in Glasgow is doing, so sod's law in terms of the timeline, but I'd be happy to pass on their learnings as and when they come along. That'd be no problem at all. But you know, if you're comfortable with the engineering of it, then yeah, go for it. It's an obvious win.
Yeah, well, it's trialing things and pushing boundaries. So
yeah, exactly.
You know, the e-bike project itself will be a pilot, and you know, hopefully we recognise that there are lessons to be learned, particularly within the kind of rural area, which is just outside Stornoway, just north of Stornoway. So happy to keep in touch with you about that.
Yeah, no, it would definitely be of interest, and possibly even would be happy to do a case study for it. I'll come up to Stornoway quite happily and do that. That'd be very nice indeed.
I've got yeah. Anyone else have anything? I've got one thing I'll jump in with if anyone else doesn't. If no one else has a question.
Can I ask
go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. Can I ask just would that be possible in an off-grid scenario, or is it very much that you have your solar panels, they're connected to the grid and you're charging from the grid? Because we did ask about it in terms of hubs, and we were told it wasn't possible. I felt, Matthew, you were in that call with me, so perhaps you can remember. So we were told the load was too high for the solar panels and it wouldn't be possible in an off-grid scenario.
My understanding is the Glasgow one's an off-grid scenario. I can double check it. I've only unfortunately jumped into one meeting on it and that didn't come up. But yeah, I think it's off-grid. I'll find out for you, Sally.
Yeah, that'd be really, really interesting, because that would be quite transformational for our project if it was possible to have them off-grid.
Right, okay.
Yeah, I think
if I say that the aim and objective of the energy hub at CoMoUK is to be 90% off-grid.
my recollection is when we had looked at that before, it was with a kind of 4-bike shed which has chargers integrated and we were wondering, yeah, if you could integrate that with solar panels. But when we spoke about that at the time, I can't remember exactly who it was we were talking to, possibly someone from, can you remember, Sally?
It was the hub manufacturers, so
yeah.
I can't remember their name, but it was the hub manufacturers.
Yes, I
the
know
bicycle hub manufacturers.
I can't remember either, but yeah, they were thinking it would basically need a bit too much. You'd need storage as well to ensure that there was always enough charge for the bikes to charge, and they might not always be drawn down too much. So they felt it would just be too complex really to work out, rather than just trying to get a grid connection where possible. But so it would be really interesting to hear.
Yeah, that's yeah, you're right. That's what it was. I'll find the name.
Sorry, go on. Just to say, Sally, I've contacted my colleague by email who's been leading on that project for us. So hopefully she'll know and come back to us in the next few minutes. So might have an answer for you sooner rather than later.
Okay, that's great. One question I've got, Mark, maybe just before we move on, but and I'll maybe come back with a few later on. But I guess sort of I was interested to hear that you said, yeah, the mobility hub as a concept hasn't really been worked out for rural places yet in the same way it has in urban or semi-urban environments. But another phrase you hear a lot of is 20-minute neighborhoods. And I just wondered how you think that can be applied in a rural place, because that seems another phrase that hasn't really been considered for, for an island or a rural environment either. Yeah,
I think so. I've got 2 research things that I want to do, and the second one is on 20-minute neighbourhoods. And I simply put, I think it's an urban and a suburban idea. I mean, I'm sure I'm transgressing Scottish Government's idea of what this thing is, but I don't know if you know the history of 20-minute neighbourhoods. It was born out of Paris, and yeah, I mean, even the guy that did it, Carlos Moreno. I think he acknowledges it doesn't really work in an urban, a rural context. I heard one planner in a meeting I was in suggesting that the 20-minute neighbourhood involved in a rural context being able to drive 20 minutes. And I think, once we're starting to redefine it in that way, then it ceases to apply in a rural area. So yeah, I think personally, and it's very much a personal opinion, that the Scottish Government has been very bloody lazy in applying this carte blanche across Scotland, because we do have huge challenges in rural areas, and to simply say that because it works in an urban or a suburban context, I would say a lot of time it's probably challenged in a suburban context as well, then it would simply work in a rural as well. So yeah, I think it's lazy thinking, if I'm perfectly honest, and we need to find out from rural communities how something like that, probably not even calling it 20-minute neighbourhoods, can be applicable in a rural context. Now, as I say, that's my opinion. I'm sure if the head planner was on here, she'd be having kittens, but I think that's the reality of it, if I'm perfectly honest.
Okay, no, well, good to hear that. Yeah, good to hear your honest opinion on it, I think. And it would be interesting to hear about those 2 kind of research ideas, research projects you have as they progress. If you're looking for rural communities to engage, I'm sure some of those.
Yeah, so we've asked.
Might be.
We've asked Transport Scotland for some money on those. I don't think we'll get both. I think it'll be up to them what they want to do. But if it is the rural one and how we apply the idea of 20-minute communities in a rural context, then the way I've described it as a kind of workshop scenario where we actually kind of look and talk to people in different rural communities, because that's the other thing, you know, that this idea, you know, our urban planners are very keen on just kind of going rural and that's it. But there's obviously masses of different challenges. There's rural areas that are quite well served by public transport. There's islands, there's rural areas that have got absolutely nothing. So we have to make sure it's all encompassing. So yeah, if we can get that research done and it takes us forward, then great, you know. But it will be about engaging. There's no point not in doing it on any kind of academic basis. I think it has to be a workshop type thing.
Yep. Okay, great. Well, thanks very much, Mark. And I'm sure we'll maybe be coming back to you at the end when we have a bit more discussion. Sure. I'll pass on to Daryll now, who I'm very happy has been able to rejoin us, and hopefully the connection's working okay. I wonder maybe if everyone else could possibly turn off cameras and mics just while Daryl's presenting. That might help just to lower the demand on the line.
Right, I don't know if everyone can hear me or can see this. Let's say my connection is pretty dreadful up here. So, as I mentioned earlier, I'm working for Cycling UK up here, and I'm running a couple of projects. The main one is Rural Connections, which we're going to do. So that's me, Development Officer. So Cycling UK is a national charity. It's formerly the CTC, which has been around for over 100 years. It's a national cycling charity across the 4 nations in the UK. We've got branches absolutely everywhere. More than 70,000 members, so we're quite a big organisation. We campaign for the rights, greater rights for cyclists, to encourage people to cycle, and a lot of campaigning to improve infrastructure for cycling as well. In Scotland, there's 6 projects at the moment, and there's the 2 projects that I'm running, which are called Shift and Rural Connection. We are just launching a Scotland cycle repair scheme as well, which gives people a 50 quid voucher to get a repair done in the local bike shop. We've got a women's network of cycling called Bells on Bikes. We've got a Bothy project, which is really good. And there's like locations around Scotland that are cycling hubs or walking hubs. You can go in there and get free advice, free bike loans, guided rides. And we've got another project called Play on Pedals, which is encouraging families to start cycling together and showing them safe routes and safe cycling techniques. So we're all on about, which is obviously COP26. So everyone is getting into cycling, it seems. There's loads of good initiatives as well for active travel. So we had a big presence at the COP26 in Glasgow. There was a big ride to there, and there was a big peaceful protest from Cycling UK members as well. So can cycling fight climate change? So transport is the biggest polluting sector. 27% of the UK's greenhouse gases are emitted by driving vehicles and, well, planes, buses, trains. Obviously, it can be reduced if more people cycle more often. And the recent data shows that 34% of journeys under a kilometre are done by car, which is just insane. I mean, I know up here we have not exactly great weather, but a kilometre isn't exactly far to go. During the pandemic, obviously cycling, you've probably seen it all where you live. Lots more people getting into bikes, and it'd be really good to keep that going if we can. So the projects I'm running are called Shift and Rural Connections. And again, it's a Transport Scotland funded project. So lots of these active travel projects are funded by Transport Scotland. Rural Connections is a new project. We've got people all around Scotland in rural areas doing the project. It's brand new, so everyone's putting their own stamp on it at the moment. But it's to encourage people to cycle, walk and wheel for everyday journeys, leisure and adventure. So Rural Connections, cycle loans. We've been doing cycle loans up here and all around the about. It's really popular. So long-term, short-term, finding people a bike, lots of people will know that it's really difficult at the moment to actually get hold of a bike. So we are loaning those people bikes until they can actually find their own. We're lending a few organisations bikes until they can get their own fleet sorted out as well. Supporting local organisations. So we've been doing a little bit across Scotland, supporting different organisations with their projects. Connecting lots of local networks, meeting organisations, community trusts, individuals who are interested in cycling. And then we've been upskilling volunteers in the community. So we've been providing training, mechanic training, etc., etc. And we have been, or I have been putting on different activities to offer cycling opportunities. So Shift is basically, we're giving out small grants, 800 quid, and providing support, training, and networking. So up here, I've got the least budget out of all of my colleagues with an aim to 1 or 2 grants. And I've already awarded 3, and I've got about another 3 in the pipeline that are just about to finish their application. So it's not a massive amount of money, but it's a simple funding application to fill out. It's very, very quick and easy. So progress so far, the project only launched at the beginning of June, and it's very good to say just a minute ago, it's difficult to get hold of bikes. So in May and June, I've been inquiring contacts, making introductions to organisations, getting my bike fleet together and launching Rural Connections. And then straight away, I had quite a lot of interest, and so e-bikes have been going out on loan, long-term loan. And the idea of the loans is really to get people to ditch the car for short journeys. So the first couple of loans I got out of the people with no car that live in Harris and are just using them to commute from where they live to their workplace. So it's much better than, more reliable than catching the bus, and just good for your all-round health, mental health. So I've got a massive bike fleet now, and I've got bikes for everyone. So I've got from easy rider, electric bikes, adaptive tricycles, tandems, cargo bikes, which are a real big thing in cities all around the UK and in some urban areas as well. They've been really useful to a lot of people. If you've not tried one, I would recommend it. They're great. So in July and August, I started running community cycling events across the Western Isles, and my e-bike loans have gone through the roof. I've been providing confidence riding sessions. So a lot of people haven't been on a bike for a while, especially an e-bike, and they need a little bit of help and assistance to actually get out and get on their bikes. And I've been lending fleets of bikes out to some organisations. The photo there is actually the preschools. It's the preschool in in Stornoway, and they've got 10 balance bikes and a couple of adults bikes for the staff. And so if you ever go up there, you'll see them whizzing around on those wee scoot bikes. So bike loans, again, like once people try their bikes, there was a figure that we heard a minute ago about how many people have actually, or what percentage of people have actually bought a bike after a loan. So for me at the moment, it's 30%. So these 2 guys, one bought a bike straight away, and Diane is wanting to get a bike, but she can't get hold of one currently. So she's got one on a long-term loan at the moment. So in September, right up to now, we've been doing more bike loans, more cycling events. We've done a big event with HISA, so the Students Association in the UHI, Lewes College. I've been building a bigger bike library, so expanding the fleet to more adaptive bikes, as well as more e-bikes, and then planning for next year. The confidence sessions are really popular. Lots of people are asking. I'm actually teaching a few people to ride from scratch, which is pretty cool. And I've started a Thursday night ride as well, and that's to sort of give people some exercise during the winter to give them the confidence to ride in the road at night, and show them some techniques and stuff as well. So confidence sessions, like these 2 guys bought new bikes. Didn't really have them very well set up. They bought them remotely, so they had them posted up here. So consequently, they didn't fit them properly when they got them. So I've been setting them up, showing them how to use the bike, showing them how to brake properly, and just generally improving their confidence with riding in traffic. We've been out a few times, and their confidence really has grown. again, bike loans, it's, you know, everyone is actually taking these bikes. So I've got trailers and equipment. So Kate here got hold of a bike from me and a trailer, and she runs a sea kayaking business and manages to transport all of the gear using that trailer to where she keeps the sea kayaks and runs it successfully. So it's quite amazing actually that people are ditching the car in favor of using a bike. Things like trailers and cargo bikes really do mean you can do away with having a car. If you live somewhere like in Stornoway, you know, you can fit 70 kilos worth of load in the cargo bike, and it handles no differently to what it does when it's unloaded. It's really good for just going and getting your weekly shop and stuff. And as it's an electric bike, little effort. So I've been around the place doing some events, lots of community cycling events. So I've been down in the US, I've been up in Lewis, I've been all over the place putting on little events. So the community cycling events I've been doing include like free bike repairs. So people can bring their bike along, they get their bike fixed for free. Bike tryouts, lots of people are curious about electric bikes and standard bikes. They want to give them a go. It's a lot of money to invest if you don't like it. So we've been lending out a lot of e-bikes and doing tryouts, been providing advice on what bikes to buy and where to get them from. Been doing easy led rides as well, which have been really quite popular. Trying to show people easy ways and safe ways to commute around town, Stornoway, sorry. It's been really popular. Again, free, and next year I'm looking at expanding these a lot more and going in a lot more different places.
Hi everyone. I'm not sure, we all seem to drop off there. Looks like everyone's been able to rejoin again, so we can maybe just continue where we left off, but I'm not sure why that cutout came. I was just sharing my screen there with your slides, Daryll, so I'll just start doing that again. Is that, you're muted, Daryll. Can you see my, yeah, can you see your slides again?
Sorry, I don't know where we've got to. So yeah, the community cycling events have been pretty popular. Sorry, something's cracking up here.
Not sure if we've lost you again there, Daryll. Apologies about these technical hitches, everyone, although nothing new to most of us. We've done our fair share of Zoom calls at this point. Just give Daryll a couple of minutes. I guess if Daryll can't join, we can have a look at the rest of his slides possibly, and then just wrap up or have another bit of discussion. He's left, so give him a chance to join again. Sorry about this. Possibly a good chance for anyone to go and make a cup of tea if you're wanting to.
Hi Matthew, it's Nigel. Are you able
Nigel.
to share Darren's email address with me? I'll be keen to hook up with him.
Yeah, I can do, Nigel, definitely.
Just when you get a chance.
So yeah, no, we'll do. Yeah, like I say, I hope he'll be able to jump back on, but he's just saying he's just sent me an email to say he's going to try again. But yeah, no, I'm sure he'll be happy to link up with you. Have you been out cycling much since you got here, Nigel, or in recent months?
Tends to be the indoor trainer these days.
Okay.
But yeah, the plan is to do some winter training, mostly inside. But yeah, if we can get back on the road in the better weather. Yep.
Yeah, not always too appealing to go out, but usually rewarding.
I know this is making me feel bad about the lack of cycling I've done in the last few months.
Indeed.
Has anyone been able to trial any of the bikes that Daryll has, or done any of the community events he was talking about?
Is that the same events, Kathleen, that is it Gordon Scott runs up in Stornoway? Is it through Embrace? Embark?
No, I think they're different projects.
Yeah. Okay.
But some similarities. I guess Daryll, I think, has been more focused on going out to, yeah, smaller villages, smaller towns, whereas Embark is fairly centred in Stornoway, I think.
Yeah, it was there. I was going to try and do this cycle leader course, but it just clashed with something else that Saturday.
Okay. Yeah, they do a lot of good sessions as well, the Embark project. But yeah, I don't know if Daryl's done any cycling courses down in Harris yet, so he may be interested in hearing from you, Nigel, and setting something up there. Yeah,
well, with my other hat on down at the Leverburgh hub, that we talked about some energy reports. Yes, definitely looking at some form of active cycling or active travel down there as well. So yeah, some good synergies.
Okay. Doesn't look like Daryll is having much luck. So what I might do is take us through the end of his slides and just, I think he'd kind of introduce most of them, but just so we can have a look and give from what I know from chatting with Daryll here and there. So yeah, Thursday night rides, as you mentioned. I think those look like they are in Stornoway, possibly around the castle grounds, which is a fairly safe place to cycle in the dark. but look, I'm sure they're very open and welcoming to anyone who hasn't been cycling for a while. And then, yeah, some general statistics on the figures from Daryll's project so far. So really good to see that he's surpassed expectations in terms of the shift funding events, and also looks like a lot of people have been getting involved as well. So just encouraging that there is the interest there. Future plans. So continuing with bike loans. I know Daryll's interested in doing some kind of festival of cycling to bring all these events together and get a lot of excitement around that. And then also working with community groups to build safer routes, which we were discussing yesterday, and establish cycling groups. So there's Daryll's email there. I don't know if you want to just note that down just now, Nigel. But yeah, it's such a shame that he's had to drop off. So Gemma, I don't think there is any charge for the bike loans. I've just seen your question in the chat there. I'm fairly confident they're free. So I think we can hang about, and the floor is now open. I'd say very welcome for anyone if you want to come on and ask any questions to Mark or myself, or hopefully Daryll if he can rejoin in a minute. But yeah, I'd start by saying thanks very much to Mark and Daryll for those presentations. It's quite interesting to see the different kind of perspectives on cycling, and yeah, both really a lot of interesting takeaways or interesting work going on so far.